Drum roll for the Pantone color of the year that's going to predict how all of 2026 will go. And it's white. Excuse me. Cloud Dancer. I'm genuinely not sure how this even counts as a color. I mean, honestly, I was planning to make this video all about how the color predictions were lining up with the early 1930s Great Depression aesthetics, and how that might be a bad indication of how we're feeling. But this, this is somehow even worse. And it's not because it's nothing. It's not because it feels like they tried to find a way to get out of actually doing any work. Oh no, it was very intentional. And it says so much more about how bad things are about to become. Okay, back to the studio because I can't with this. Much better. You may be wondering, even if you know all about Pantone as a company, why does their color of the year even matter? Plenty of other companies come out with their own version after all. Here's the thing, those other companies sell a product, paint, kitchen appliances, handbags, or whatever it is, and they'll push that color or group of colors through their specific products. Other similar companies might follow the ideas of those that are well known or successful, but Pantone doesn't really sell a product like that. They sell color. They're supposed to be at the center of the cultural ebb and flow of color in all of its variations, but they chose white, and people hate it. Not everyone, of course, but the general response has been far from positive, enough that they had to defend it in a press conference. So, why is it so important? Well, for one, we've long known that color is reflective of emotion. Scientifically, green is the easiest color for our eyes to spend a long time looking at. Makes sense when you think about what we developed staring at. Red is the opposite on the color wheel, and it is the most stressful for our eyes. We associate colors with the places we regularly see them. Blue water and sky, green leaves, brown earth and wood, and so on. Colors being vibrant and bold compared to dull and soft gives dramatically different energy. So it's no surprise that trends change over time as we feel differently as a society. It's not just fashion. This is one of the few places I will say you can see things like the economy reflected. Now, back to the company in question to understand why this matters. Before we can figure out what it means, Pantone has been doing Color of the Year since 2000, so not actually all that long. Their color matching system has been around for a bit longer, starting off as an ink printing company in the 1950s that was renamed Pantone around 1962. In an attempt to standardize color systems for easier communication, using their system, of course, they slowly found smaller print shops to adopt their version and worked their way up. The big event happened in 1968 when Pantone won a court case, allowing them to claim copyright on their system. Not the colors themselves, but the setup of names, colors, and layout, which is fascinating because they weren't the only or even the first to use a similar system. How to have thousands of companies across the world communicate color had been an ongoing issue for decades prior to Pantone. One of the largest systems was the Standard Color Card of America, produced specifically for textiles and started up in 1915. Despite the name, it was actually globally recognized for decades. Every year, a new set of creatively named colors and swatch books would cover what the association decided would be the most popular options. They were not as extensive as Pantone's early 500 color range, but most of the colors changed out annually, so it's a great example of what was trending for that short time. The bigger issue is that it's aimed at textiles, so it's not covering inks, paint, makeup, or any other type of manufacturing. So Pantone found a potential gap and filled it but they also pushed out the majority of other systems that tried to form throughout the 20th century, which would be fine if it weren't for the fact that they charge over $1,000 for their books. And they recommend you regularly repurchase as the colors gradually change within a few years because the paper can be affected by climate and new colors come out often. So you're missing some. Regardless, it's important to know that Pantone's original purpose was not trend predicting. It was a standardized color system for global communication. They've always been a company that sells to other companies. Now, companies selling physical products to customers have done colors of the year for far longer. Everything from kitchen appliances to lipstick. But they were able to trend predict for their specific audience and product type. Those early color cards included dozens of colors for the year for a reason. Which is to say, the premise of choosing one overarching color doesn't mean much. It won't work for everything, but it is meant to inspire or at least tap into the cultural desires of the moment, which is understandably difficult to some extent. The way the color is chosen is by an international group that gathers together and decides about a year in advance. So it's not community driven, it's not voted on by everyone who feels like it. It's more about a mix of designers and business decisions, which I admit confuses me more with this year because you can't really sell white. It's already everywhere and has been available as a standard for a while. Other things just shouldn't be in that color. They're literally trying to sell Cloud Dancer Play-Doh, and it's absolutely giving sad beige child. So why white? According to Pantone, it's because we're looking for respite, looking for relief, emotional disconnection, overstimulation from visuals. We just want to step back. They use terms like clarity, serenity, and relaxation. The suggested color palettes run a full range of styles. They have light pastels and dark glamour, bright tropical tones, and warm earthy colors. There's no consistency, which they claim is the point of their choice. It can be whatever you want it to be, which is why it can feel like the choice of white is the lack of choice at all. While that may be empowering to designers who want the freedom to go in any direction, though I don't know why they feel restricted by Pantone for that, it also doesn't really help them to understand where the cultural shift is going, or even what other manufacturers will do, which is kind of important when no company is selling in a bubble. We want our closets, our homes, our lives to feel some level of cohesion, even if it's just trying to put together an outfit for the day. If only one company is selling a very specific range of green and no one else has things that coordinate with it, it's not going to be enough. But here's the thing, it isn't Pantone trying to get out of a decision. They are defending it. They've created an entire write-up of why they chose Cloud Dancer, something they do every year and can give us a lot of insight into not only how they feel about the color and the world in general, but by looking at the popular reaction to it, we can actually see the disconnect that is our current problem. Pantone actually has a very consistent range of descriptive terms they use for color of the year. Their website only goes back to 2010 for the full description of each color, but they all fall into these three categories: soothing, calm, peaceful, energizing, vibrant, creative, or grounded, earthy, and warm. Not all ears contain the reasoning of things are rough right now, so we are looking to XYZ for relief. But those that don't tend to just not mention anything about the societal state at all. It's much more personal and individual in those years. It is difficult to predict major swings in cultural emotions. 2020 was always going to be a wild card because no one could have planned for that. I'll give them that maybe if things had gone very differently over the last year and a half since they had their meeting, it's almost possible that we as a society would have been in a refresh and start over mood. And I don't know the exact date of their meeting, but it's supposedly an ongoing discussion, not a one-off weekend. Even as of a full year ago, we knew things were not trending towards 2026 being a year of clean slate. And it's not like the choice of safe and neutral has done well for Pantone recently. Both of the previous years were already receiving criticism for that. There had already been commentary on how the last 2 years were basically skin tones. Maybe white, in a year where we're dealing with the rise of extremist white nationalism, wasn't the best choice. But I do think it's fair to assume they didn't choose it with that in mind. For those that chose this color, white is calm. It's luxury. Going back to my previous videos on the rise of beige and how the myth of luxury turned everything boring, this fits right in. Neutrals have long been seen as, well, the emotionally neutral option. It's not aggressive. It's not creative. It's the color form of fitting in, following the rules, being modest, and never stepping outside of the box. Whether it's individuals or entire cultures, vibrancy and color is often seen as a form of rebellion. Now, obviously, color isn't absent from proper European history, far from it. But there's still a standard of how much color is appropriate, or what's in style or even in season. Those that are considered overreaching in their use of color often wind up as the joke or the outcast. White has long been the sign of cleanliness, of newness, of minimalism. All things that require money to achieve and sustain. I once heard someone say that the true expense of minimalism is knowing that if you get rid of something that you end up needing later, you know that you'll just be able to afford it again. Add in that wealth is about taste. It's about being in the know of what the latest elevating things are. And simply, Pantone is not selling to the outcast or even the populace. They're selling to companies that can easily afford a $1,000 book and extensions every year. Not the average person wanting to buy a product off the shelf. They are selling to the taste makers, those that have an investment in both guiding fashions and restricting them. I've discussed this at length before, and none of this is my novel idea. It's just how class, taste, fashion, and products interact. Even in the era of the internet and street fashion, products and designs are still expected to go through the trickle-down process most of the time. Hence how we end up with mostly bland and soulless options in stores. Cheapened versions of luxury with all of the good parts removed for cost effectiveness. Pantone has always been, and is meant to be, a sample of how the wealthy are feeling. The larger the gap between the general population and the wealthy in terms of culture, the less the color of the year is going to resonate. This really shows in the colors other companies have chosen, not just in paint tones that have a fairly wide range that is still somehow cohesive, but even in companies like IKEA, who chose Rebel Pink. Not every person will like every color, but at least the reaction trends towards understanding why they chose that. The average person is the customer for IKEA. Of course they'll have a better idea of what that person is looking for. The predictions for what the Pantone color would be were either a complex deeper green or teal or something bold, emotionally either nurturing a strong and deep growth or resistance to the norm through creativity. Which I would love to hear down in the comments what you wish the color was. But therein lies the difference of how we as a society are dealing with the chaos. When things like the Ralph Lauren Christmas suddenly trend, it's not a sign that we're looking for luxury, though some people will assume that it is. We're looking for stability. Not in the ground under our feet is brown way, but in the this has always been here and will always be here way. The way that your favorite meal, a library full of old books, or a hearty wool tweed feels. Not actually forever, but a constant comfort you can return to. I don't need the serenity of a spa or a week-long retreat in the Colorado wilderness. I need the warmth of a blanket and a cup of hot chocolate while I chat with friends. I want a color that evokes community, joining together in comfort or in resistance. But that's my personal response to this stress. And different age groups, social backgrounds, classes, and more have dramatically different reactions to dealing with chaos. And that's really why there's such a strong negative reaction to the color choice. Being told You just need to have a calm, clean spa day in the middle of this chaos to feel better. Reads as avoidance and ignorance at best. At worst, it's the feeling of being told to calm down when upset. This range of white to beige is what is often seen by the wealthy or those that function within that space as the ideal, as the base, as luxury, as comfort, as cleanliness, as a refresh, a place to start over. But to those of us who don't occupy that range, it's seen as a limiting color, one forced upon us constantly due to a lack of choice, one that is difficult to maintain as clean and can easily look cheap and devoid of personality. The same color can have two completely different meanings. Not just a class thing, there are people who do emotionally find comfort in off white, minimalism, and neutrals, but we're looking at larger societal shifts and not personal preference. What's for sale, what's trending on social media, what reactions it's all eliciting. The current cultural response to political chaos right now, of those that are the most worried about it, isn't to ignore it, isn't to retreat to a minimalist space without distraction. I've been sitting in an emptied out white room all week while working on the plaster and woodwork to prep for painting it, and that led me to write this whole thing. People are looking for safety through community, through their home. They're looking to resist through group actions, through small personal rebellions. That's why both cozy and dopamine decor are trending styles in both clothing and household. You don't have to wear a t shirt with printed words to resist normalcy and complacency through what you wear. Being weird also accomplishes that. To expect a single color to encompass all of that is definitely an impossible task. Maybe a color like plum that has an underlying warmth and depth while remaining cozy, or a chartreuse that has a vibrating energy that wants to pair with other strong tones to create complex emotions, or a muted teal that can be calming without being cold or sterile. This range is more in keeping with what paint companies and other predictors had claimed for their 2026 colors. As an emotion based choice, white just feels like avoidance. So, yes, you might ask, why does it matter? Pantone is just one company, and the color of the year doesn't really impact that much. But the answer is that it's incredibly telling of the fact that corporations, business people, investors, the wealthy, and a whole bubble of people who not only control what is in our stores, but who donate and involve themselves extensively with politics, are so far separated from the populace that they actively chose a color, emphatically chose a color that they thought would be embraced. Originally, this was supposed to be a look at how these color schemes remind me of Depression era 1930s color schemes and how color links into economic changes, which I should probably still do. So let me know if you want to hear about that. Though I admit I am itching to show you the horrors of AI floor plans first, so make sure you subscribe and stick around for that because, wow, are those bad. Also, yay studio! It's not finished at all. I literally just shoved a bunch of things behind me, but I painted the walls and the ceiling. The stenciling will happen much later. I just... Not white walls. Yay! It's a respite. It's a respite. I don't know how to say that word. Is this one of those British things? Oh no. We're gonna say it both ways, and I'm gonna look it up later. Respite. It's a respite. It's a respite. We'll find that out how to do the thing. Yeah. New York, New York. Why is that in my head? It is almost 9 o'clock at night. I have run out of energy, and I have managed to run out of paint.